Good morning, welcome back to the channel. So in the previous video on the Insignia I took care of the cam belt and the water pump, and that went really well. Today's video is going to be all about the service. So I'm going to do a full service on the car, take care of some noisy drop links. So enough of my waffle, let's get into it and see what's involved. So the first thing I want to do is get the car up to a reasonable temperature. Now I don't want to go too high on the temperature, I just want the oil to be just a little bit warmer than it is currently so that it flows out of the engine. So we'll get the car warmed up and I'll be back in a minute. So now the car's warmed up, before I entertain dropping the oil, I'm just going to spray and clean up the current bolts for the drop links and stick some penetrating oil on it, because later on I'm going to be replacing these and I want the best chance of getting them off. Now I can, if necessary, angle grind them off, but I don't really want to have to do that, so as easy as I can make it, let's make it. So whilst I'm doing the rest of the service I can be letting all this soak in. So whilst the penetrating fluid does its magic on the drop links, I'm just going to undo the sump plug bolt so that I can get the oil started to drain. As it starts to seep, and I'm not going to undo the plug all the way, I want it to slowly drain. I don't really want to make too much mess. So I've got a nice steady flow, not going to make too much mess like that. And then whilst that's slowly draining, I'm going to take care of the air filter and the pollen filter. So whilst the oil is slowly draining out, I'm now going to turn my attention to the air filter. And it is a case of disconnecting this section here, so this MAF sensor, pulling that back, disconnecting this wiring by just releasing that little clip, pinching slowly, releasing that, and then we'll get a 7mm on that, and there's a series of look like 20 size Torx bolts all the way around, and then the whole thing hinges. So I'm just going to quickly remove that and then I'll show you the filter. So the top of the airbox cover taken off, it was quite a simple process to do. Let's see the old filter, and to be fair it's not that bad. But we've got a new one, so we're going to replace that anyway. And that's that new filter in. And then it's just a simple matter of rehooking the airbox back into its little hinge there, resetting it back down and tightening everything back up. Next job I'm going to do, whilst the oil is still draining, is do the cabin filter. Now, funnily enough, the cabin filter is in the cabin, but more importantly, it's actually behind the glove box. So drop down your glove box. There's a series of bolts to be removed. There's one here, one down in that corner, and I believe there's one in this corner too. Once they're removed, then the glove box just falls away, and then that will reveal the cabin filter. So I'll just quickly get the glove box out of the way and then we'll take a look. So the last screw for the glove box was actually hidden behind a bit of trim. Sneaky. So you just basically pull the trim away, and then that allows you to get access to the last remaining bolt. And there we go. Glove box comes away. Now before you let the glove box drop to the floor, make sure you undo the wiring for the light, and then the glove box can then be totally removed from the car, like so. So we can now see the fuel filter housing in all its glory. So what I need to do now is just to get a little screwdriver just to release this little clip, and then that should just lever down like so. So you can already see this pollen filter is in dire need of replacement, so I'll just get this one out and then we'll compare it to the new one. Right, it's fair to say that's not been replaced for a very long time, so it's not looking best, especially when you compare it to the new one. Now there's a little bit of debris and detritus in there, so I'm going to go and get myself a little hoover just to hoover all that up, and then we'll get the new filter in and get this all buttoned up. So it's looking a lot better in there, now it's all hoovered up. And no, Steve, I did not hoover your car interior either. Steve's the owner of the car, by the way. So I'm just going to pop the filter back in, making sure that I don't crimp the wiring for the light. Now it's important also that you get the airflow arrows even in the correct direction, facing downwards. And that's that pushed back in, and then we'll just reclip that back up, reinstall the glove box, and then that's that job done. Having replaced the top filters, I've turned my attention back to the sump bolt because the oil had finished draining, took the sump plug out, to remove the old washer. Wasn't supplied a genuine replacement washer with the service kit from my friend that owns the car, so in its place I've put a copper washer in and tightened the sump bolt up, so that should be absolutely fine. But it is best practice to replace this bolt, to be fair, and the washer itself. But I've been doing this for years and I've never had an issue, so that's all good. So the next thing I need to do is to replace the oil filter. Now Vauxhall, in their wisdom, decided to put the oil filter housing directly above the drive shaft, which may be great to lubricate your drive shaft, but it's going to make an absolute mess of everywhere. So I think what I'm going to do is get myself a piece of card, make a channel, stick it underneath the oil filter housing, and then have it run down into my collection bucket, hopefully limiting the amount of mess that I make, because this next job, or this next bit, is going to be messy, and it always is. So give me a moment, I'll make something up. Okay, so the best idea I can think of is to make a channel out of a piece of card that will run directly into my catch bucket, and then hopefully by then undoing the bolt and letting it drain out, or not the bolt, the cover, and letting it drain out, I should hopefully eliminate all the mess. I mean, yes, I can clean it all up with brake cleaner, but I'm going to make a mess of my floor, I'm going to make a mess of everything, so yeah, I'd rather not do that. Okay, got the first sign of oil coming out. And we've got bigger flowing out, so hopefully. Perfect. So we'll let that slowly drain, and hopefully that's eliminated the mess. So my master plan of not making any mess very nearly worked. All good down this end, but I wasn't counting on a little bit overspinning at the back, and it did just drop down onto the floor there, but in the grand scheme of things that's quite minor, and I'll clean all that up. So with the filter removed, what you've got is a canister with the filter itself, and it is just a simple matter of just removing that. Shove that into the old oil, doesn't really matter. Tip out what's left in the canister, and then you can get a bit of brake cleaner on that to to clean it all up. So that's what I'm going to quickly do now, just to make sure it's as clean as possible. You want to try and get as much of the oil out of the engine as possible. It stops the oil from blackening too quickly. To get all the oil out, you'd have to drop the sump, because there's quite a lot that sits in the sump. But for most cases, what we're doing today is absolutely fine. So I'm just going to clean this up. I'll be back in just a moment. Now that's all been cleaned, it all looks lovely. There's an O-ring here that needs to be removed, and just using my little dental pick, you can just pry and rotate, and then you pop in your new O-ring. Nice and gently, making sure you don't warp it. And then just make sure that sits nicely in the channel and it's not twisted in any way, shape or form. The new filter itself has got an O-ring at the top, and that's ready to go, and then it is just a matter of just connecting the two together like so, and then re-screwing that back into the casing. So the last bit to do is just give it a little bit of a spray of brake cleaner and a little wipe round with a cloth just to clean everything up, and then it will be as if you've never been there. Cool, that's all done, so we can now top the oil up. So the oil quantity for this car is about 4.5 litres, but you don't know how much is sitting in the sump. So I tend to not worry about what the book says and just put in what it needs. And you can tell that by reading the dipstick. So what I like to do first is give it a good quantity, check the dipstick, and then read it off. Once you start the car, you're going to lose a little bit of oil in the oil filter, so you'll have to recheck the dipstick again after starting it and letting it run for a minute, and then re-top up as required, and eventually it finds its own level, and then you can then adjust the quantity of oil going in based on the dipstick readings. Probably find we're only going to be putting in about 4 litres, I would suspect, but it needs what it needs at the end of the day. So just started to get it to register on the dipstick, so I'm going to chuck probably about another about that much in, and I'll check it again. So we're about 3/4 of the way up the dipstick, which is fine to start the car now. So I'll pop the dipstick back in. I'm going to start her up. The oil level will drop a little bit once she's started, and then I can recheck the dipstick and then put a bit more oil in to finish off. Having run the car up, the oil's now circulated around the engine. I've checked the dipstick level and it's sitting just a little bit below the maximum, but that's just because the car's just run up. So letting the car settle now and go cold is going to allow the oil to settle down at the bottom and give me a true reflection of where the oil actually sits. So then I can top up accordingly if I need to. So we'll leave that for now, and then we're going to now turn our attention to the last part of the service, which is going to be the fuel filter. And then after that, we'll do the drop links. We're now ready to do the fuel filter, but before I talk about that, I'm going to show you this. This is a mat I just picked up from Halfords. Now I was a little bit dubious about getting it. It's a rubberised mat and it's 6 sections that all interlock together. But my God, it's amazing. Just lying on that as opposed to lying on concrete makes all the difference in the world. So 6 for £8 I think it was. I'm going to get another set so I can double it up if I need to. But actually, well done Halfords. Blinding product. I'm really, really pleased with it. Anyway, let's crack on with the filter. So what you're looking at here is the fuel filter. Now I know it looks like a scene from the Titanic. It's a very typical problem with Insignias is they do like to get a little bit crispy underneath. But there's a little release here, which I think is probably going to be a screwdriver job. There's a little valve which you can release here, which gets rid of any fuel that's currently sitting in the filter, and then it's just a simple matter of unscrewing this housing a bit like the oil filter, and that will gain access to the filter internally, so we can get that changed. So I'm just going to try putting a screwdriver onto this to see if I can release the valve so I can get the old fuel out, and then we'll get the filter swapped out. So I've got a little stubby screwdriver. I'm just going to rotate this piece here, which should allow the fuel that sits in the filter out, and there may also be water in there as well, so it's quite useful actually, because this diesel is going to clean up my drain bucket nicely. I do like the smell of diesel in the morning, it's lovely. So that took a little longer to drain out than I thought it was going to. Didn't think it was ever going to stop, to be honest, but it did. So I'm happy now that's just a small drip. I can replace the drain screw. So I'm now safe to assume that this canister is now empty-ish. I can just line that up, so, and then we'll remove the canister. Now this is a 36mm socket, which is quite a rare thing actually, because most socket sets only go up to about 32. So a little while ago I took the liberty of buying myself the next sizes up in impact, so it's useful for various jobs on cars. But every now and again you just pull this out, because it's better than trying to use a big spanner or something like that, when you can get a nice socket on it and get a good purchase. This housing's got 25 Newton meters written on it, so we know what the torque setting is going to be for it. Now I did just hold the top part of the housing when I was unscrewing that, because although it's only 25 Newton meters, I didn't want to put any pressure on the bracket holding it, just in case. So I'll just unscrew that now. And yeah, incredibly similar to the oil filter. So we'll just take that off, pop it there. Pop on the new filter, and it looks like we've got an O-ring to go on as well. So I'll just fit that and be back in a moment. Took me a little moment there to work out where the O-ring was, but it actually sits up here in the housing lip. So you just kind of push the new one in, and then you're ready to reinsert, screw up the filter cap or cover or whatever you want to call it. So just going to go and get my torque wrench, get that up to 25 Newton meters, and then we'll be all set. So torque wrench is set to 25 Newton meters, and just button this up. Let's try not to rake the joint. Super. I'll just give everything a little bit of a bit of a clean. So it's always good practice to clean things up, because when you run the car up, you can then check for leaks and make sure you're not going to get any issues. So yeah, that's that job done. Okay, so the very last part of the video is to do the drop links. A bit I actually don't like doing. I don't know why it is, they're just a bit of a pain. You can cut them off and do things like that. I always like to try and remove them though without cutting. Now it's always worth also checking what you've bought drop link wise against the old, just to make sure that what you're about to fit is right, because if it isn't right, then you're going to have a problem, because once they're off, they're kind of broken. So we'll take this drop link off and we'll fit the new one. Now, initially, I'm going to try and buzz this off with a gun. I suspect what will happen though is this centre shaft will start to turn as I try and remove the nut. If I can get enough speed on it, they can sometimes come off. And the reason why I cleaned the thread up earlier was to give it the best possible chance. So I'll try that first. If that doesn't work, then I've got a little trick up my sleeve. So almost immediately, that is now turning. So that's not going to come off that easily. So the next option is to use something called a through socket, and it's a socket that's got a hole right through the middle of it that you can put on. Turn that with a special ratchet, and then you can then put a Torx bolt or Torx in the middle. So that's kind of what we're trying to achieve here, look. And then with a bit of luck, I can then remove the nut. And there we go, that's the top removed. So I'll do exactly the same on the bottom, and then I'll show you the new links when I've got this off. So the bottom nut did put up a little bit more resistance than the top one, but then it's really down to the fact there's not as much clearance. So why do drop links fail? And it's really down to this. This joint becomes sloppy and loose. Same with here, and then it's just kind of causes a knocking noise because there's too much free play. And then when you compare it to the resistance of a new, which doesn't move at all under any pressure, that's what causes your knock. So putting these back on is quite simple. Literally, it's just a matter of repeating the process again by unscrewing these, dropping the drop link into position, and then tightening up the nuts to a specified torque, which if I can find it, I will put it in the video. So that's that drop link installed. Wasn't too bad actually, this one. It wasn't as bad as some I've experienced in the past. So there are times when you have to cut them off, and I really was hoping that wasn't going to be one of the times. But all I have to do now is the other side, which will take me a few moments to do. And then that'll be all the jobs done on this car. So I do hope you've enjoyed watching this video, and I hope you've managed to get something out of it, as have I. So always when I work on cars, I learn some new things myself. This channel is all about saving money and getting people to try and have a go. So I hope that's inspired some people. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more content like this, then please do subscribe. I really do appreciate it when people subscribe. So thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.